This isn't just another royal rumor. This is the kind of secret that detonates families, rewrites timelines, and leaves a prince staring at his own life, wondering what parts were real and what parts were carefully staged. Because while the world thought Prince Andrew was the only royal quietly erased, a far more dangerous question has been lurking underneath the palace carpets. What if Meghan Markle already knew him long before Harry ever entered the picture? And if that's true, then everything Harry believes about how his love story began starts to fall apart.
Prince Andrew's downfall came because of his close links and ties to Jeffrey Epstein. That, and also because of what allegedly he did, according to Virginia Roberts. Then why is the press and the palace refusing to look or comment or report on Meghan Markle's links to the same individual?
Meghan Markle's legal team have been in contact with the Daily Mail after it republished allegations made in Andrew Lowney's new book entitled...
Some speculation that she was on Epstein's yacht at one point in time. There was like photos with her and Prince Andrew way back in the day when she was like in her early 20s. Wow.
Where he describes a 2018 call from a woman claiming to possess a 4-year-old tape of a Meghan who is about to marry a prince.
Andrew traveled to the US Virgin Islands with Geoffrey, or met up with her there at all, or before she reached the restricted age of consent of 18 years.
Did Meghan Markle meet Prince Andrew before Harry via Ghislaine Maxwell? This was on Geo.tv.
This woman had been trafficked by Epstein in her past. Epstein setting Prince Andrew up with a second woman.
Meghan Markle gets slammed as she gets downgraded along with Prince Andrew? Yikes. It's gotten so bad that apparently Meghan Markle is ready to move forward with Princess Kate.
King Charles and Prince William still believe Meghan Markle is a bigger threat to the royal family than Prince Andrew. A position backed up by a bombshell outspoken poll. I'll reveal the results in just one moment.
Grace to Prince Andrew. He will now be known.
Just Andrew.
Well, just Andrew. Look, I mean, there are some really, really big questions here to ask about the future of the royal family, where it sits. I mean, the past couple of months could not have been worse PR for the royals.
Fills me with concern for her hapless husband Harry. If the petulant prince hated his past role as the royal spare, what must he feel about his current role as Meghan's?
January 2026 arrived with the royal family barely standing after one of the most scandal-soaked years in modern history. The fires looked contained, the damage looked managed, and then, without warning, a buried connection resurfaced that threatened to rip the monarchy open from the inside. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, stripped of titles, cut loose from privilege, reduced from royal prince to private liability. And suddenly, his name was being whispered alongside Meghan Markle's, not as a coincidence, but as a collision. Reports resurfaced quietly at first, then louder, then impossible to ignore. Stories suggesting Meghan and Andrew moved through the same elite social circles long before Harry ever existed in her orbit. Overlapping networks, shared rooms, familiar faces. The kind of connections the palace doesn't deny, it erases. And behind closed doors, reactions weren't calm, they were panicked. Because if Andrew really knew Meghan before she married Harry, then the fairy tale didn't just crack, it collapses.
They should be jumping all over. Is it because it's too close to home, or they're not ready yet to oust Meghan Markle? Well, we're going to explore it here, and I'm going to show you, and we're going to talk about why they are keeping quiet about this. Is the palace behind this cover-up? Michelle Obama also. Why is she blaming white people's style for her being oppressed? Would this woman shut up? Why can't she just be proud to be black and wear her afro?
Harry may be the last person to understand how deep this actually runs. Because when Andrew lost everything in October 2025, the titles, the residence, the protection, something else disappeared with it. Restraint. King Charles stripped him down publicly. No mercy, no hesitation. Overnight, Andrew went from Duke of York to a man with nothing left to protect. And that's when secrets stop being bargaining chips and start becoming weapons. Sources close to royal circles say Andrew knew things about Meghan that predated Harry by years. Details about the rooms she entered, the names she knew, the elite spaces she navigated with alarming ease. things Harry was never told.
Imagine, because Prince Andrew just set it all up, right? I don't even want to call him Prince anymore. Andrew. Why'd you wreck my name, dude? Look, I've never liked this guy. This guy always seemed like a skeevy creep. From that interview, like you could just see on him, this guy was a rich, privileged wackadoodle, in my opinion.
Here's the detail that has palace insiders frozen. Back in October 2016, Harry and Meghan's relationship didn't leak randomly. It was leaked by Andrew's household. That's on record. A servant from the House of York tipped off the press, something later confirmed by Tina Brown. And the question no one has ever answered is why? Why would Andrew's people expose Harry's private relationship? Unless they already knew something about Meghan. Unless this wasn't gossip, but a warning.
We have seen that the artist formerly known as Andrew is not necessarily truthful. So why would anybody trust him sitting down and testifying before the American government? Why is this a fixation for anyone when we've seen that he's capable of dishonesty?
Look at the timeline, and suddenly nothing feels accidental. Meghan was allegedly moving through yacht parties and elite networking events for years before Harry. At the same time, Andrew was deeply embedded in those same circles through Jeffrey Epstein. These weren't parallel worlds, they were overlapping. And then comes the moment that never made sense. Harry claims that when he introduced Meghan to the royal family, she mistook Prince Andrew for a servant. That's his story, but here's the problem. Meghan was already close friends with Princess Eugenie before she ever met Harry. Eugenie is Andrew's daughter. So how do you know the daughter but not recognize the father? That doesn't add up.
Is Andrew. And they're still known Duchess of Sussex, as she's so fond of ordering people to report to her. This is interesting because I don't understand why they had to announce her when she walked in. It's the other way around. They announce lesser people to the royal, they don't announce the royal to lesser people. And I say lesser people because that's how they see it, okay? You always announce the lower rank to the higher rank people, and Meghan Markle clearly considers herself super ranked above anybody else.
Royal biographers noticed it immediately. Palace staff noticed it. Andrew noticed it. How do you build a friendship with someone's daughter and not know who her father is? Unless you're pretending. Pretending not to recognize him avoids questions no one wants asked. Where did they meet? When did they meet? Who introduced them? Acting confused suddenly makes sense when recognition would open doors you can't close. And sources say Andrew's household was furious about that moment. Not amused, not confused, angry. And not long after, the relationship leaked.
If he was in his shoes, he would be responding. And bearing in mind, of course, Keir Starmer has a legal background as well, as we know. And in this case, he feels Andrew should quietly step forward, although he doesn't say it by naming him. I think by implication he is suggesting it may be best if he did. But unfortunately for Keir Starmer, I think like a lot of people who disagree with him, Andrew definitely probably will disagree with him on this issue.
Then there are Meghan's mystery years, the time before Suits. The years that don't track cleanly. Photos surfaced online showing women on yachts with Prince Andrew at elite events. When Meghan's name became linked, the response was immediate and aggressive. Those women weren't Meghan. The images were dismissed, the conversation shut down. But here's the thing, if there was nothing there, why rush to kill the story? Why mobilize defenses so fast? Silence would have sufficed. Instead, the reactions scream panic.
She is on record having said that she didn't know Andrew then and he wasn't there. So, it's not only Harry and Meghan that come up with 3 and 4 versions of the same story. Virginia Giuffre does and did even when she was Virginia Roberts. Why did she do it? Well, the only thing that would have been possibly shady was the Little St. James episode. Except the date is very clear. He wasn't there when she was under the age of 18. And there is no evidence that he was there when she was there. But that, of course, hasn't stopped the speculation.
Because even if those photos weren't Meghan, the implications were radioactive. If people started digging into elite networking circles, the overlaps would surface. Kirby Summers documented Meghan's presence in high-end yacht environments. Andrew was infamous for hosting the same kinds of gatherings. These worlds didn't brush against each other. They merged, which raises the question the palace never once answered. Did Meghan and Andrew meet in those spaces? Did they share mutual connections? Did those connections later place Meghan in Harry's path? Those are the questions buried deep under palace silence. King Charles' behavior toward Andrew suddenly looks less like mercy and more like fear. Publicly, Andrew was destroyed. Privately, doors reopened, calls resumed, staff access softened. Why? Charles doesn't protect liabilities unless they're holding something dangerous. Sources say Charles is scrambling, not just over Epstein fallout, but over what Andrew knows about overlapping royal knowledge and Meghan's background. From the moment Harry introduced Meghan, Charles reportedly saw patterns. Outsider. Media, darling. Fast rise. Faster chaos. But did he see more? Did he already know about elite connections tied to Andrew's world? And did he try, quietly, to slow things down? Because Catherine isn't calm behind the scenes. She's concerned, not emotional, strategic. She believes Harry deserves the full truth. Then December 2025 hits. New Epstein files are released. Buried inside are references to Harry and Meghan, not accusations, but proof of their value in media cycles. One article alone generated $4 million in publicity. And here's the part that rattled everything. In 2021, Virginia Jeffers' lawyer wanted to depose Meghan Markle, not because she was accused, but because he believed she might know something about Andrew's world. That statement still exists. A legal professional believed Meghan had knowledge worth examining, and that raises a devastating question. How would she know anything unless she had been there? And this is where the story stops being about Andrew and starts being about what Harry was never told. Because even if nothing illegal ever happened, even if every photo could be explained away, even if every rumor stayed just that, the one thing the palace can never admit is this: they didn't fully understand Meghan's world before letting her walk straight into the center of theirs. And for an institution obsessed with vetting bloodlines, backgrounds, and behaviors, that's not a small oversight. It's a catastrophic failure. Think about what Harry believes. He believes he met Meghan through Eugenie by chance. He believes his family rejected her out of jealousy and prejudice. He believes the palace never gave her a fair shot. But Harry doesn't know what his uncle's household did in October 2016. He doesn't know the leak came from Andrew's side. He doesn't know lawyers once wanted Meghan questioned about Andrew's world. He doesn't know how deeply the palace investigated overlapping elite circles and how much of that investigation was kept from him, because no one wanted to be the one to tell him. Telling him would mean explaining yacht networks, explaining Epstein-adjacent environments, explaining why certain names kept appearing in quiet briefings. And explaining that would shatter the love story he was already emotionally locked into. So instead, gaps were left. And gaps are dangerous because people fill them with a version of reality that hurts the least. That's why Harry still believes the servant story. That's why he accepts explanations that don't survive basic logic. That's why he never questioned how Meghan could be close to Eugenie but not recognize Andrew, because believing otherwise would mean questioning everything. And everyone around him knows it. That's why William keeps his distance. Not out of cruelty, but caution. That's why Charles stays guarded. Not cold, but calculated. That's why Catherine maintains firm boundaries. Not indifference, protection. They are carrying information Harry may never have been fully given. And that burden shows. Behind palace walls, meetings have been happening that the public will never hear about. Discussions centered not just on Andrew's scandals, but on what exists on paper, in emails, in briefings, in internal reviews that can never be made public without destroying credibility. Charles wants calm, control, silence. Catherine wants distance, separation, no platforms, no concessions. She understands something Charles fears, that once Andrew talks freely, the damage spreads far beyond him, because Andrew has nothing left to lose. Title's gone, reputation obliterated, public exile complete, which means leverage no longer works, and Meghan knows it. That's why her silence around Andrew is so loud. She speaks on global issues, she speaks on injustice, she speaks on transparency. But when Andrew lost everything, nothing. No statement, no distancing words, no condemnation, just silence. Because silence avoids timelines, and timelines are lethal. Sources say Meghan is deeply worried behind the scenes, not about public opinion, but about connections being mapped publicly, about names being spoken out loud instead of buried in briefings, about Andrew connecting dots that were never meant to be connected. She can't threaten him. She can't pressure him. She can't control a man who has already fallen. And Andrew is bitter, Bitter that he became the sole villain while others who moved through similar worlds escaped scrutiny. Bitter that he carried the weight alone while overlapping names stayed protected. Bitter enough to talk. And here's what the evidence quietly suggests. Before Suits, Meghan moved through elite environments where access mattered more than Ursum's. She attended exclusive gatherings, cultivated relationships, and built networks that most people never even glimpse. Andrew operated in that same stratosphere, through Epstein, through billionaires, through yachts, through invitation-only spaces where power circulates quietly. These weren't separate paths, they were adjacent lanes. That doesn't require scandal to be dangerous, it only requires proximity. When Meghan wanted access to the royal family, connections through Eugenie helped bridge that gap. Once Harry entered the picture, momentum took over. The palace noticed concerns, but stopping a royal relationship requires explanations they couldn't give without exposing things they didn't want discussed. So they managed risk instead of stopping it. They moved forward while monitoring quietly. And now, years later, the cost of that decision is coming due. Because Andrew knows things. The palace investigated deeply. Files exist. Questions were asked. Concerns were logged, and none of that disappears just because time passes. That's why Charles is trying to keep Andrew contained. That's why Catherine insists on distance. That's why William is bracing himself. And that's why Harry remains the most vulnerable person in this entire story. Because he burned bridges without knowing the full map. He walked away from his brother without understanding what was being withheld. He sacrificed everything for a narrative that may have been incomplete. And the most brutal part? Even now, no one wants to tell him. Because telling him doesn't just hurt him, it exposes the palace. It raises questions about vetting failures. It raises questions about who knew what and when. It raises questions the monarchy cannot survive answering openly. So silence remains the strategy, but silence never holds forever. Because Andrew is still alive, the documents still exist. The connections are still traceable, and when someone with nothing left decides to speak, control evaporates. So the real question isn't whether Meghan and Andrew moved in connected elite circles before Harry. The real question is how long the palace can keep the full scope of those connections buried, and what happens when Harry finally realizes how many pieces of his own story were missing. And when that realization hits, that won't be a scandal, that will be an implosion.